Good question. I'm in Berlin for almost 7 years and I enjoy a lot, as I guess many people who are in touch with arts, because this city offers so much and has such a big variety, and I enjoy going to concerts and I enjoy many facets of this. It's such a rich scene. Like the classical music scene is very special. Like some people say this is the classical capital of Europe. We have so many big orchestras here, and yeah, it's the place to be. It always was for me. I mean, music was everywhere. My father is a clarinet player. He played in Frankfurt Opera House, and my mother was a piano teacher and pianist. So we had two pianos in the living room, and of course, a young boy, I think it was not even 3 years old, is very interested in those black and white keys, and I tried to play what I just heard without having piano lessons, which was probably the best decision my parents could ever make, because that actually influenced my first years of encountering the piano in a very good way, without any pressure. And I was actually listening to music, I was playing music. It just was a part of myself, like a very natural language. You know? And I actually never questioned this aspect in my life. Playing the piano was a very central thing. It was not about being a pianist. Of course, when you're like 10 years old, you're not a pianist. You're trying to go further and to be yourself and to find out what this is about and to learn those amazing works, get to know those composers. But within that, getting to know yourself. Making music was something I never did for anyone else than for myself. But when it came to playing in front of other people, for example, I played my first competition when I was 9 years old. And then there was an audience, there were people and the jury. It appeared to be even like almost wrong, because I felt I need to share something that's coming from inside, which is the most, possibly the most personal thing I could offer. And then there's people deciding if that is better than what others did or the opposite. But in general, playing in front of audiences or just in a regular concert, like, yeah, that's such a great thing. And that actually conveys an atmosphere that probably can't be found in that way when you're like recording in a studio, which is on a different level, something that I don't enjoy less. No, I love chamber music. I played a lot of chamber music over the last years, and this is where I probably learned the most about myself, about composers like Brahms, for example. I play a lot of Brahms chamber music, and you learn what this music is about. So I love playing chamber music as much as I enjoy the loneliness, because that's the most personal way of discovering what happens inside. At least sometimes that's what I'm discovering on stage. The center of this album is Scriabin's fantastic, very dark first piano sonata, which is very seldom played, which I really don't understand, because it's so mature as an early work already, pointing on what's gonna happen in his life later, with all these like rich colors, but big danger and dark abyss. Yeah, what's happening with the Scarlatti around? I feel like both Scriabin and Scarlatti are very famous for having written many miniatures for piano or keyboard instrument. I mean, Scarlatti wrote 555 keyboard sonatas, and some of them contain some kind of an inner distance. Of course, there's a lot of happy music within these many sonatas, but there was some inner distance that I always felt with Scriabin too. So it was quite a challenge to try to connect those composers, and I guess we found some beautiful connections. It was a lot of fun, honestly. I mean, that's what I love, because this is like creating a good menu or a fashion show. This is such a big responsibility, but you have the big chance of creating a new context, new perspectives for some works that might have been played for centuries or even more. So these works might appear in a new perspective without losing their own nature. And this is what I love when it comes to creating a concert program, or especially when working on a new album. Very difficult. I mean, my first album was Prokofiev, so there definitely is some connection to Scriabin. And I feel quite close to the great Russian romantic music, and especially the Russians of the last century. But also, yeah, Igor Stravinsky, there's this connection to France, and yeah, I don't know. But Scarlatti and Scriabin both have a very important part in my life. When I was younger, I always played their pieces as an encore, and it felt very natural, and yeah, very nice to have this as my first collaboration with DG, which is an incredible honor, of course. I guess this happened through the music of Sergei Rachmaninov and Sergei Prokofiev mainly, but I also remember growing up with Scriabin's piano sonatas. So there is some kind of a very dark, rich world which is a very different world of sound language than, for example, Brahms, Schumann's world. I always enjoyed this, and to dive into this and trying to be a part of it, but to focus on a whole album and say, yeah, I'm gonna record Scriabin, that felt very naturally. I had the feeling that the connection between the young Scriabin and Scarlatti's sonatas is in a way more obvious, and also the young Scriabin tends to have some roots in Chopin's music, and it's actually hard to describe, but I felt the late Scriabin, which I adore. I love the late sonatas and this incredible darkness he got into. But I also feel this darkness in a very sophisticated way is actually, like, it can be found in his earlier works. And for example, when you take the first piano sonata, which he wrote when he over-practiced and he had pain in his right arm, he wasn't sure what future would bring, because he was actually scared his career as a pianist could be just over. And then he wrote this funeral march as a final movement. Very strange idea, actually. And later he wouldn't like to talk about this period of his life, because it reminded him of a very dark year, some very dark years. And he actually never wrote a funeral march ever again. So I think what you're mentioning about the late Scriabin is somehow connected already in the early music. I mean, this is this crazy quasi niente section in the funeral march, like an island of light within all this darkness. And we chose to extract the quasi niente, put it in the beginning, we named it Prologue, and transposed it to B major to have it at the end after the B minor Scarlatti Sonata K87, to frame the whole idea and to draw people into this world, and also to create the sense of a déjà vu, because you're living differently with material that appeared in your head before without even knowing that it might be part of something bigger. So that was the idea of having more, like also some kind of a psychological aspect in listening to this album. And I really hope that people listen to this album as a whole thing and experience what I experienced when creating this in the studio. In the beginning, those transitions were no compositions. That was actually what I improvised at home, thinking about the material I was recording and trying to connect it, like to make some musical ideas appear again. And in the end, I actually wrote it down. But yeah, the idea was actually, again, having this psychological process when you're listening to the whole album, making musical material appear again and to connect and to make it, you know, it's again, like, have you ever seen an Alexander McQueen fashion show? This is so strange because some of those great giants, it's not only about music, they are capable of this, that you're creating something out of many different pieces, but then there is some connection and a red line appears again, or a color that has been there just once and in the final piece. So this is definitely something I tried to reach, which is probably a big goal, and I don't know how the listener will feel about it, but that was the main idea, about adding something more personal from my side that's never been played before. As a child, I was improvising all the time. So I spent many hours, maybe 8 hours a day at the piano, but I was only improvising. So after like getting regular piano lessons, and I wouldn't say I lost it, but it wasn't as present as it was when I was very young. And recently, over the last 2 years, I guess, I find this again. This is like a recollection of something that I loved when I was younger, and I knew this is inside and it's still a part of myself. But also when it came to writing own transcriptions of music, which I also did for my first album, which was not with DG, it actually starts with improvisation. I try to collect colors that I have in mind, and as soon as I feel that works, I record myself and then I start writing it down at some point. Sometimes I don't. I love when some things are actual improvisations and they stay like that, because they change and they keep changing, and this is actually a very natural, beautiful thing about what we are doing, no? It's a good question, because for me, the experiment of having Scriabin and Scarlatti together is something that creates big contrast as black and white. It's not actually a reminiscence of piano keys, but it's two worlds from different countries, different times, that were never meant to be together. So this cover, that was actually my idea, to have something that draws the listener already in a visual way, and to connect in a way that creates a world that's one picture, but it's very separated in the same way, you know what I mean? Like, we have those lines, but they are part of something that's much bigger. I mean, I understand that especially in those times we're living in, going to a concert might be a way of forgetting what we're surrounded by. But I also think in serious and very dark music there is this beauty that also helps us to process what's going on. I don't know, I don't think it's about showing the darker side. It's probably about being just authentic, and when you feel it's the most important part of knowing who you are, that you discover who you are not. And I guess this should be reflected in a concert. So I think it's wonderful that when people come to a concert and they also invest something, so you can discover the depth of this music together. It's not only the pianist or the musicians on stage. It's something we all discover together. And we even discover it together when people are at home and they're listening to this album, and they might connect in a different way.